I believe that confidence is a skill set. And we're so used to running around and saying, well, I would do that if I had the confidence. They're equating that they feel a little uncertain, unsure about something as, well, I don't have the confidence to do it, which is completely different than, do you deserve to do it? So that's the self-worth component, because a lot of us run around thinking we're not worthy of the good things. And I like to turn that on its head because I'm a woman of faith and I believe that we are all worthy.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our ongoing goal is to inspire and empower you to live your best audacious life ever. I'm totally thrilled to have you here with us today, and I appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us. Now, just like a caterpillar transforms into a beautiful butterfly after overcoming the darkness of the cocoon, our journey from trauma and self-doubt to confidence and self-worth is a testament to the transformative power of resilience, faith, and self-belief. In the face of as a common barrier to confidence, we must spread our wings and embrace change, trusting in our ability to grow and flourish. Our guest today is Sharon Huges. She's an author, a speaker, and a coach who specializes in confidence and self-worth. Sharon's personal journey of overcoming adversity and finding her inner strength serves as a beacon of hope for those seeking to unleash their full potential. Now, in this episode, Sharon sheds light on the crucial role of faith and self-belief in achieving personal growth and audacious living. Her insights into recognizing and overcoming fear as a common barrier to confidence provides valuable guidance for anyone on the path to self-discovery. So we got the table all set. Let's turn over to our chat with Sharon. Enjoy. Hey, Sharon, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you for taking the time to do this today.
Oh, Audley, it's such a pleasure to be with you, and I'm thrilled to have this conversation.
Oh, I'm generally thrilled every time I have an opportunity to sit down and have dialogues with individuals that have something to offer that can help individuals, change or adjust the trajectory of their own life or help bring them to a better place, if you will. So I'm totally thrilled to have this conversation with you. I know you specialize very much in this place of confidence. And really helping people to inspire their confidence or recognize their confidence or some cases uncover their confidence. I think, and I'd love to get your thoughts, but I think to a certain degree, we all have it there, and just for whatever reason, it's covered up, it's hidden. Maybe there's a fear that's attached to it. Maybe there's an element of self-doubt that exists that says we can't do it. So I'd really love to hear your thoughts on that, but maybe as a starting point, why don't you fill our audience a little about you and the work that you do?
Well, thank you. Yeah, my name is Sharon Huges. I'm an author, speaker, and coach. I consider myself to be a confidence and self-worth expert. And I say that because I personally walked through it. And now I teach what took me almost 6 decades to learn. I'm giving it away. But yep, I've seen it all. Nothing really surprises me. And I've cracked the code. So I'm here to serve your audience.
Give me an idea of the difference between confidence and self-worth.
Okay, so I teach those things completely different.
Okay.
So I believe that confidence is a skill set. And we're so used to running around and saying, well, I would do that if I had the confidence. They're equating that they feel a little uncertain, unsure about something as, well, I don't have the confidence to do it, which is completely different than, do you deserve to do it? So that's the self-worth component, because a lot of us run around thinking we're not worthy of the good things. And I like to turn that on its head because I'm a woman of faith and I believe that we are all worthy.
Absolutely. It's very interesting how and, you talked about sort of your long journey to get to where you're at now, and so it's fascinating that you have lessons that you've taken from that. If you don't mind, I'd love to hear sort of what was your biggest challenge or obstacle in establishing your self-worth and your confidence.
Oh my gosh, oddly. How long's our show going to be, my friend? Okay, well, I'll give you the cliff notes. It was everything from parental abduction, um, sexual assault, grooming, homelessness, all those things, all before I was 17, and not having a place to go to get healing and to tell my story. There was no one to trust.
Mhm.
And so I did what most people do with their brokenness is shove it down and put on the I'm fine mask and keep going. And I really consider myself to be very, very fortunate because my life turned out good and it turned out the way that it has.
Right.
But I equate that to because I always wanted the American dream.
Okay.
I wanted the house, the picket fence, the cookies in the oven, the kids playing in the yard with the dog. Those were my dreams. And no matter how bad things were in my life, I believed in more and bigger, and I always had hope.
Okay.
Even in my darkest days, I had hope something is going to get better. And somehow that saw me through with my faith. So, from all those things, I learned to be gritty.
Mhm.
I learned wisdom and discernment, and that's a journey in itself. So I draw on all those things to teach people that haven't gotten there yet, like what's really possible for them and how to attain that.
Yes, yes. I love the conversation around hope, right? Because it's that
Yeah.
invisible thing that like it's like fuel to an engine. Like it just propels you in ways you never thought imagined, or you didn't even think was possible. But and I know it's different for different people. Where did your hope come from?
Well, it was really two things. It was really my faith, and it was just always the hope, no matter how far out in the future and how bad things were, was that the future was going to be better, that something had to be better. Because, we all say, could it get any worse? And you'll hear somebody say, oh, don't say that, you'll jinx yourself. But it was like you would say it, and it would be like, then the next level of how bad something is, and then the next level of how bad something is. And then you get to that point where you have dark, they call it dark night of the soul. You probably heard that term, where you are in so much emotional pain, you think you literally cannot go on any further. And that was when I really hit a bottom and started really crying out to the Lord for help. And he answered. Do you want to know that story?
Yes, please. Oh, please. No.
It's really good. So yeah, I woke up that morning and I was praying and I said, God, I am not going to make it. And I've been in therapy before and not really ever gotten, that thing that helps you get to the next level. It was always just so like, stereotypical therapy. You leave and you go, "Oh, I just threw everything up, but got,
Right.
I'm not getting anywhere."
Nothing's changed. Like,
Yeah, no, it's like there's no tactile skill here
yes.
of what to do next. Maybe that was just my experience. Hopefully others are getting somewhere. But when I said that to God, as clear as you and I are talking, I heard him say, "What are you believing about yourself?" And I thought, "Oh, are you kidding me?" Because you know the list in my head, horrible things I believed about myself. And he said, "Is it true?" It's like, boom. Those two questions, I call them the God questions. I took those into corporate training and experimented with it. And they became the foundation of everything I speak about and teach about, is
Mhm.
because we always have to be in the truth. And sometimes we think, well, yeah, it's true. My parents said this about me. A teacher said that about me. All my life, I've heard the same thing, and it keeps showing up. And it's like, well, sometimes what we believe about ourselves is quite self-fulfilling.
Yes.
It almost becomes
Yes.
prophetic.
Yes, 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 yes.
We got to shake it up. We got to make sure that we have people we can trust to say, this is what's going on. Help me unpack this. And
Right.
it's really important to have that person that you trust, because if you share those very deep personal things with someone that does not have that character and the wisdom to unpack it with you, they're going to do you more harm.
It so the idea of just questioning ourselves, I think it's a beautiful thing,
Yeah.
and one that more of us should do as often as we possibly can. Our belief systems are, even just question our belief systems, and why do I think the way I do, or why is it that, as a kid, I didn't bike ride. I just did what I didn't learn how to ride a bike as a kid, and as time had gone on, I just like, oh, it's just that thing I don't do. So all the other kids would bike ride, they're like, yeah, I don't bike ride. And what I carried through my life was, I'm just not a bike rider. And I remember vividly, I just turned 40, and suddenly I was like, yeah, why don't, actually, the funny story around that, I was just walking in an old neighborhood once, and I saw a bike shop. And I'm walking by the bike shop, and I saw a childhood friend of mine. He had opened his bike shop, and I was, oh my gosh, I was so excited to see him. And when we were kids, he was always riding bikes, so it made sense, kind of a thing. So I'm having this conversation. I'm standing in the bike shop, looking around, marveling how beautiful it was, and I'm going, why don't I ride a bike?
Yeah.
Like it just, and it was that. I vividly remember like questioning, going, yeah, why don't I? So I turned to him and said, hey, give me a bike. I want to buy a bike and I'll go bike ride, right? And so that was kind of how it started. But I think the idea of questioning, reflecting, I think it's a great way of keeping ourselves honest.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, how cool. Your childhood friend and he has a bike shop.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And he was always,
Well,
when you see something on you, and so when you hear, you're like, yeah, I'm not surprised. When I saw him, like, oh my gosh, of course he has a bike shop. Of course.
yeah, that's so cool. And so now you're an avid bike rider?
I became a ridiculous bike rider, and there was a stretch of time where I couldn't get off my bike, and I was always looking for that next sort of long distance thing. I remember biking to Niagara Falls, which is
Oh,
I don't know. I mean, I'm probably I'm in Toronto, Canada, and so I'm probably about an hour and a half from the falls by car. And so I got on my
yeah.
bike and so I mean, I got a bit obsessed and ridiculous, and I'm glad I came down from the high because I was really up here, but it was almost like I was trying to get caught up for all that lost time I had, right?
Oh my gosh. What a great story.
Yeah.
And that's like the perfect example of just giving it a shot, something that you think you can't do. So going back to like the confidence component, like it's a skill set, riding the bike. You just had to learn how. You had to give yourself a chance to try it. Maybe you got hung up with the gears or whatever it is, or the seat wasn't the right height and you didn't know that. You had to ride a little bit to figure it out or whatever it was. It's like this is how I like to encourage folks to give themselves a chance. When you and I were kids, well, where I grew up, we all rode skateboards in the street
Sure.
and we would have water fights and all that stuff. And we all fell off our skateboards and we would laugh at each other. We'd go, oh, he ate it. Okay, no big deal. Nobody got hurt and, took their skateboard and went home. We all ate it and got road rash. And then we get back up and we keep going. Well, what happened? All of a sudden we grew up and we're afraid to eat it in front of our friends. And so we just don't play in the street anymore. I'm like, what happened? Why did we grow up like that to
Yeah.
think it's not okay to fall down?
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I think so that is a really, really good question. And I want to
Yeah.
jump into, you gave the example of what if we fail? What if we fall down? What if
Yeah.
we eat it? We oftentimes forget that there's lessons in that, right?
Yeah.
So if you try something you've never done before, and you got one or two options, you're
Yeah.
successful at it for the very first time, which is fantastic, or you
Hmm.
fail and you weren't successful. Okay, so let's
Yeah.
talk about the being successful is the easy one. We know what comes with that.
Yeah.
When you're not successful, okay, so you didn't do it. You didn't accomplish what you tried to do. But what you did do is walk away with a lesson on how to do it better, or what not to do, or what other option you can take. that's not a failure, right? It's just, you just attempted. You attempted. Okay, great, it didn't work out. Now you're moving on. You can try it again with more, information or knowledge. And so when we talk about ways of building our confidence, the acquisition of knowledge has to fit into that somehow, doesn't it?
It totally does. And if you fail, I just like to say two words. So what? Like, so what? Think about whatever it was that you did when you were a kid. Like, remember we had Lincoln Logs, we had Tinker Toys,
Sure.
we had Erector sets. Like we would just sit around. Now it's, like more like Legos probably.
Yeah.
We would sit around and we would just play and experiment. If we built a castle and it fell over, we just rebuilt it. We didn't, cry and pack up our toys and hide in our bed and just be like, my life is over. I'll never be anything. Like, where did this happen? I don't know if it's so much in the growing up, or is it the culture and the social media pressure. I can't figure out, like, what's the turn that we all seem to have went through at the same time.
I don't know if it's just one particular thing. I really think it's a combination of things that have taken place.
Mhm.
You mentioned social media. I think that for sure is something that's influencing how we see the world and view the world, how we should live our world. The funny thing, I comment on this often, is in social media, people oftentimes, not that it never happens, but no one ever uh, shares their missteps or the mistakes that they made or the number of times that they failed and tried, or the fact they're up at 2 a.m. every morning practicing it with skill set, or that stuff you're not seeing. You oftentimes see the end result, which is, hey, look at me and look what I've done, right? But there's a
Yeah.
lot more that happens. So social media definitely is there. When you talk about, you talked about sort of your own background and upbringing and things that you had to go through, I think people still carry trauma from those situations that happened in their younger days. And some of it is realized trauma, and some of it's still buried in a hole and we don't even know it's there, but it's still having an impact. And then there's just general fear. So I don't know if it's just one particular thing.
Yeah.
Perhaps for individuals, it could be one that's more prevalent, perhaps. But
Mhm.
certainly, I think it's a combination of a lot of stuff happening with us.
Oh yeah. And I think that's the perfect illustration, what you just walked through. And the unrealized trauma. So many people have unrealized trauma. So about 5 years ago, I was certified as a critical incident stress debriefer. And we talked a lot about PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. And I think many of us thought PTSD was for men and women that went off to serve in armed forces
That's
and
right.
war.
That's right.
You didn't realize like a car accident can cause
Yes.
PTSD,
Yes.
being robbed, or horrific illness. Even some people, which is interesting, they can go to the hospital, knowing that they need to have a surgery. Maybe they broke an arm, they need to have pins put in it, can literally have PTSD from a surgery.
Sure.
So there's just different levels, and it was so interesting, and it gave me like fresh eyes to see that people process things so differently. So, for example, even if you and I were in a car driving to a conference together and we got in a car accident, you and I may respond differently. One of us might have PTSD, the other may not. Or, just the way that you process. And a lot of it has to do with your already beliefs about life, the world around you, and how you were raised. But it could be even something from your childhood, like you have a kind of a suppressed trauma, it can get triggered by another event. So that was really my dark night of the soul. I was going through a divorce. I had closed this international wholesale business. I was trying to reinvent myself. It was rough. And it was kind of that thing that blew the lid off of everything I had shoved down. And people tend to do that. They shove everything down, and then something will happen, like, maybe one of your folks passes away, and here's that trigger, and the lid blows off, and people will say, well, okay, that person, they passed away, they were older, maybe they weren't well, we expected it, but why is it affecting me the way that it is? And it's like, well, that's just a piece of it. It's everything that was behind it that you hadn't dealt with.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a heavy topic.
No, very much so. There is, and heavy for a number of reasons. Primarily, the level of impact it can have on people, and
Right.
how prolonged it potentially can be if not dealt with properly. And we're talking again here on this podcast. We're telling individuals how to live your best audacious life and
Right.
go after what you're supposed to, but you can't if this thing is holding you back.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
what a lot of people are dealing with experience. What was your one particular thing or one event or maybe a series of events that sort of triggered you or inspired you to sort of get into this type of work to help instill other people's confidence? Was there something there that happened?
I think I was really starting to go through the whole like, personal development transition in my 40s. And when I had my wholesale business, I started holding entrepreneurial events for women because I was like, God, this was really easy to start this business.
Right.
And I had been looking for a way to bring women together and to encourage them for a while. And I thought, well, let's just hold these entrepreneurial events. And they were really successful.
Mhm.
And I was like, this is my heart and soul right here. I just thought this is truly my calling and purpose. It's to walk with women and help them be successful. And that was what launched me into looking for, well, what's the next step? And that led to becoming certified life coach, and then all the other things that I went on to do to learn how to do this right.
Right, right. So we just talked about a bunch of different things that hold people back
Yeah.
and affect their confidence. What are you seeing as maybe some of the more common ones are you seeing with the women or clients that you work with?
Yeah. It's always fear-based. And it seems like it's always the why behind the why behind the why. It's peeling that onion, as everybody talks about. It's fear-based. It's the rejection. It's not being good enough. It's not being loved. What will people think about me? That's fear of man. It all comes down to fear of other people.
Mm.
Yeah.
And,
It's
and,
not a
and,
good
it's,
place to be.
and it's interesting because oftentimes it's I'm gonna take another layer is fear of other people's thoughts of who I am or who they think
Right.
I am or believe I am, right? Not necessarily
Exactly.
not even
Yeah.
necessarily I'm fearful that this how this person's gonna react towards me. It's not that at all. It's what you think they're gonna think about you. And I often say I don't belong in people's heads, so I don't care, right? But I mean that's really the mindset you need to have to get past that.
Yeah, and that really takes some concerted, effort to do. You have to renew your mind. You have to choose what you're going to believe about yourself. And what I tell people is you just, grab your phone and use that reminder feature. And I'll tell you what's on mine is at 10 o'clock every morning, my reminder says to me, what am I partnering with? So that's one of the things, meaning what kind of thoughts am I partnering with? So it reminds me to kind of do like that gut check of, what's going on today? What am I believing here about this? But what I tell my clients specifically to do is set it so that it goes off first thing in the morning, right after your alarm. And it's going to say to you, what do you choose to believe? Because we got to start realizing, oh, I believe that. Well, why?
Right.
Why? Because, great grandma told me that that's what it is. And it was like a wives' tale or something. Like we
Yeah,
need to
yeah,
start
yeah.
thinking about why do we believe this stuff? Yeah.
It's funny. On my forum, I have tattooed "Live life audaciously," and
Ooh,
it's my reminder to me as to how I want to show up in the world, right?
yeah.
And now I mean it's at a point now where it's more natural to me, but I really had to think it through. And okay, whenever so like when I make this decision, I make this step am I being audacious? Like literally, that's kind of the question. Because again, this is for Audley Stevenson, how Audley Stevenson wants to show up. So what works for me may not be the same for everyone else, but the idea it really ties into that reminder that you referenced and those mental cues to help reframe your thoughts and your thinking and your actions. And so uh,
Right.
I
Right.
really think that's a good exercise.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's perfect.
Um, I guess on the topic of audacious living, so how do you define a living audaciously? I'm curious.
I should have known you were going to ask me that. I don't know. I'm a little different than a lot of people. I'm
Mhm.
really bold. I'm kind of a maverick. Corporate world does not have any idea what to do with me. I was always the square peg in the round hole because I'd be, like praying for people in the ladies' room, like telling people you can do this. I was kind of a buck the system type of a person,
Yeah.
make your own way. And it's so, like, I understand people that really struggle with hard things because I did. But but when you do the work and you get to the other side of it, you're just like, why did I even wait? Like, we have this one life. It's like, what do you want to do? Why are you going to let other people tell you what you can and can't do? That's not what you're created for. So I don't know if I'm really answering your question. I'm just kind of I don't know. I'm just different and ballsy, I guess. That's
Well,
just how I choose to live.
and yeah, I know, I hear that loud and clear, and I can connect with that on so many levels. Particularly, corporate world doesn't know what to do with you because you don't fit into their model, and I think that's a little bit myself as well. So, kind of on that, then what role do you sort of believe confidence plays in audacious living?
Hmm. Well, for me, it's probably just because I overcame so many things. Like, I've honestly thought there's a target on my back, and there's a reason why. And it's because I'm going to carry this message to encourage other people to really be who they are. And I just made the very conscious decision that I'm going to be confident, but more importantly, I'm going to believe that I deserve good things because I really didn't have a confidence issue. I always had a self-worth issue
Hmm.
until I started dealing with my stuff because it was like, oh, do that? Okay, we'll figure it out. I mean, like you already talked about learning as an adult to ride a bike, it's definitely more challenging when you're an adult than when you're, 6 and you get your first bike.
Sure.
But when you decided that you're going to put your voice out into the world and you ordered all your podcasting equipment, which totally have podcast envy because you have cool gear there.
Thank you.
Like the first time you set it up, you were probably just like, okay, how do I do this? And maybe you watched a video to see how they set everything up. And, like it's a learning process, but you just decide, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to give myself a chance.
Let me tell you a funny story about that. I'm sort of glad that you referenced that. I've been podcasting for a very, very long time. My very first podcast was in 2008. And this is long before podcasts. Now they're a business card. Like everyone's got one. Here you go. Let's do a podcast. And which is fantastic. I think it's a beautiful space to be in. And
Yeah.
I want to say that this particular podcast is probably my sixth or seventh different one that I've had over the years. Different topics, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And prior to starting this one at the end of 2020, there'd probably been a gap of about 4 or 5 years since I last podcasted. So some time had passed, and as you know, technology and these things come into play. And I remember the amount of doubt that came into my head. I remember the questions
Yeah.
like, "What are you doing? You haven't podcasted in years. Do you know how many
Mhm.
podcasts you're up to already? Who's gonna listen to you? Do you even know how to do this anymore?" Like this is coming from the perspective of someone who's done it for several
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
And it was like second nature, and I'm still questioning myself. So that voice that comes in, that self doubt that you talked about, that creeps in our minds.
Yeah.
There's no one's off limits. Like we're all subject to it, and really, what it comes down to is how much time do you want to spend listening to those voices, or do you want to ignore
Yeah.
them and plow ahead?
Yeah. No, I'm so glad that you shared that vulnerable piece because, okay, first of all, I'm just going to tease you a little bit. I didn't even know there was podcasters in 2008 because you look like you're so young. So I'm thinking you were a kid. But good for you.
Thank you. My
Just since you
boyish, my
got
boyish grin is holding firm. Thank you.
I love it. Since you got vulnerable, I'll get vulnerable. It's been a really rough year, and I went through some things, and I heard those voices that used to really haunt me when I was in my teens and 20s, and really even into my 30s, of just saying, you don't deserve to be loved. You're
Mm,
not good enough. And I had to go, oh, no, no, no. We are not going back to that. So I just share that because your audience needs to know that no matter where we are in life and how successful, there's going to be that time where you hear something from the past, or maybe it's even a new idea that's going to just try to get you, and you have to stand your ground. You have to stand firm.
Yeah.
You have to say no.
Yeah.
And I like to say, who told you that?
Yeah. Question. Goes back. Question everything.
Right?
Where'd it come from?
You're my people, Audley. Where are you? What state are you in?
I'm in Toronto, Canada.
Okay, you're in Toronto, Canada. Okay, and I'm in Southern California. Okay, we can't exactly meet for pie in the middle and talk podcasting,
But we can.
but one day.
There's ways that we connect. You're an author as well, Sharon. So let's give you an opportunity to talk about your work and your writings.
Yeah. So my first piece of work is The Girl in the Garage. That's my testimony. It's written workbook style. It's about overcoming trauma, and it is a faith-based book. So help ladies out there to realize like who you are and who you are not.
Mm.
And then I co-authored a book with Chip Baker. It's this pink one up here, The Impact of Influence. Chip Baker's amazing. Big shout out to Chip. And in fact, I'm going to make a connection between you and Chip. You would be great in
Please,
his show, and he would be great on yours. You
please,
know,
please.
joy of podcasting. It's just
That's
this
it.
beautiful world
That's it.
of
That's what you call
people.
on-air production right now. We just had that. Like, let's already produce the
It
next
is.
episode.
We're just talking like friends.
That's
Uh,
it.
yeah, and then I am working on my next book. It's the same name as my podcast, called To Confidence, because I believe that every one of you are called to confidence. So that's what I'm working on.
Love it. I love it. And I agree. I think if more people recognize what's there already, and there's always little things and tips and tricks that we can do. Like, like for example, I'm a big fan of celebrating everything, right?
Yeah.
Celebrating all the small wins, because that will sort of build you, make you feel better about yourself. I like sort of collecting, and at the end of the days, and I need to be more diligent with it because I sort of fall off sometimes. But I'll look back and look, what I've done and what I liked about the day. And then a month later, I go back and remember, oh, I did that, because it's easy to forget, these little things, but they do add up and they do matter and they do make a difference in the long run. And so, yeah, no, I think those are all fabulous. I think the work you're doing is fantastic, Sharon, and giving,
Yeah.
I think giving confidence is such an empowering act and
Yeah.
a way of really guiding people. So congratulations on all the great work. For our listeners that want to connect with you directly or learn more about your work, where can we send them?
Go to SharonHuges.net, and there's all kinds of stuff there to see. So you can connect with me, even just send me a note, let me know like what you're struggling with, and I will send you back a video response because I really want to serve you. I don't want anybody struggling.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. Oh, wow, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for that insight. Thank you for being here and sharing. I've had a fabulous time with you, and keep up the fantastic work, Sharon.
Oh, thank you so much, Audley. It's such a blessing to know you, and I can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you. Looking forward to it. Hey, back we are on the podcast. As Sharon so eloquently shared, the key to unlocking our audacious potential lies in embracing our worthiness and silencing the self-doubt that holds us back. By choosing to believe in ourselves and confronting our fears head on, we pave the way for immense personal growth and transformation. Now, if you found Sharon's insights inspiring and wish to learn more about her work, feel free to connect with her directly. Her website is SharonHuges.net, and we're going to make sure the contact details are in the show notes below. And you can explore a wealth of her resources and guidance to support you on your journey to audacious living. Also, keep an eye out for her upcoming book. It's called To Confidence. It really is a powerful resource to help you tap into your inner strength and live boldly with unwavering self-belief. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the Audacious Living Podcast. I invite you to like, follow, subscribe, or share if you haven't already done so, because that's how we help grow this podcasting community. Together, let's continue to inspire each other to live boldly and embrace the audacious life that we were meant to lead. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.